Everyone, right, thank you. So thanks to MD New South Wales for asking me here today. I work at the Children's Hospital, as Christy said. I've been there for about 10 years and working with families and children. And today I don't want you to think that I'm going to be an expert on the NDIS. I'm not going to be able to answer your questions about experiences that you've had specifically with the NDIS, because that's not what I'm here for. If you have questions, I can put you in the right area. But one of the things that I found is that the huge change in transitioning from the health and ADAC to the NDIS has forced us to think about talking about our needs in a different way for people with disabilities. And one of those words that's really used a lot in the NDIS is participation. So I wanted to talk about that in particular, so that I want to empower you to talk about participation very confidently when you're at your meetings. I hope that our panel will be able to help you more with specific strategies on how to use the NDIS in reality, but it's probably not what I do every day now. But I do find that a lot of my families that I work with need language, and they need help to write down and express themselves in a participation language. So that's what I'm here for today. So I want you to be comfortable about using this word in the future when you're talking to your planners, your LACs, and other OTs as well. So participation, according to the World Health Organization, means involvement in life situations, and this can include activities of personal care, mobility, your social relationships, your education, recreation and leisure, spirituality and community life. And we know that from research on participation, it's a huge area of research actually, is that participation is vital to a positive adjustment to disability, that interventions for and by people with disabilities should target participation in all those areas that you can see above there, and that we know that participation can improve even as your disease process is continuing. So I love this photo because Carolyn and Josh are two people who have really embraced the Just Right challenge. And this is a state of what we call optimal participation in the academics. And when we look at optimal participation, or the Just Right challenge, it's a dynamic process, and it's continually working on balancing an individual's life roles, their physical, their social capacity and their choices, very importantly, with their family and what their environment can provide them in the resources around them. So as a therapist, I know that we have the capacity really to change the environment around a person with disabilities to improve their participation. And this is extremely powerful because the social, the physical environment, the family environment, and really importantly, the attitudinal environment. This is schools, institutions where you work, where you're studying. These are can be barriers or supports to participation. So one of the things that I think the NDIS is forcing us to do as a community is to identify and to specify and to organise ourselves to change. And we could have an opportunity to do so using the system. So when we talk about participation, this could be a good starting point for you. What would a great life be for me? I've stolen this from the Summer Foundation, and they're a great organisation who've put out some amazing literature to help people who are starting out in the NDIS, as well as people who are getting their plans reviewed. Just ask this question of yourself, and hopefully you would come up with some things like this to help you. To get the supports you need in the NDIS plan, you'll be asked what your goals and aspirations are. And this is a really useful thing and something that OTs do a lot. But often people with a disability have difficulty with talking about their goals. They don't know what to say. because we, as in general, even for able-bodied people, we don't tend to think about our lives in this defined kind of way. So some of these prompts might help you. For example, if someone walked into my house in 12 months, what would they see me doing, or what would they like to see my child doing? If someone bumped into me in the street in 12 months, what would I be doing? Where would I be going? Who would I be with? And you could talk about things like a good day for me looks like, a good life for me means this. And I think that all of us in this room could name the 3 most important things to me. So for OTs, we are always talking about goals with our clients. And what we see as goals in our training is looking at the daily occupations that you need to do, that you want to do, or you want to do better. And these can be in these areas. But sitting down and talking with your therapist, your family and your community support workers about your goals and identifying what the barriers are to you reaching it and what things you need, what we call enablers to achieve the goals, will help you to get more out of the NDIS. And I think that what I've noticed in working with families is if we make the goals as specific as possible and we get quotes if necessary, this might not show up on your plan exactly, but it gets you the hours that you need to get the services that you need to prove that you need it. I guess that's the main thing I want to say there. We have a great team at MD New South Wales with their NDIS toolkit is absolutely fantastic. So thanks to Carolyn for that. And I've used it. Yep, it's out there. Thank you. We're going to sell some at the end. Or give them away. Actually, we're giving them away for free. Yeah, I know they're free. It's all right. The things on that side of the slide that talk about attendance at camps, supporting the participant with coordination of services, the community social activities, the individual counselling, all these things show that MD New South Wales has a fantastic track record in actually doing participation activities, organising them, facilitating them, creating those opportunities for real change, such as the Duke of Edinburgh Award. All these wonderful activities, step by step, have led to an improvement in participation for our clients. So, okay, OTs, we can help you with overcoming the paperwork challenge that you have with the NDIS, and I hope you have been getting this kind of help from your OTs. Right from the start, we can help you fill in the access request form. We can use the toolkit and other ways of looking at pre-planning, goal setting, help you to identify your barriers and enablers to reaching those goals. We can attend planning meetings if you have complex problems as a support person. I personally find that very satisfying because the times I've done that, the people have often gotten a little bit of a better plan. Sometimes I write handover reports or letters, and I write very specific information, such as how many hours of OT time that is needed, because I think a lot of people forget that not only do you see me face-to-face as an OT for 1 hour, after we go home back to the office, we spend about 5 hours, maybe more, on organising the trials of equipment, looking at writing up our assessments. The AT reports for NDIS are extremely time-consuming. I've had OTs tell me they take up to 5 hours and they're not even charging for them. So I think it's really important that you understand that we're doing a lot of that behind the scenes. And then, of course, you have to remember that you'll need hours to look at delivery, follow-up, and looking for changes such as seating or growth, those kind of things. So when you're looking at meeting your new OT and your NDIS OT, ask questions about their experiences with people with muscle disease. And you are the expert on that, so you need to be prepared to give them information about yourself, and also listen and talk over the clinical reasons as to why you need certain services or equipments. And really, we have to really all think about anticipatory planning, and this is actually written into the standards of care. So if you know that you have standards of care for your muscle condition, please take them with you. Please underline the important things that are relevant to the thing that you want to get. Because with those standards of care are very powerful, and a lot of very brainy people, such as Dr. Farrer and Dr. Jones, have spent a lot of years on developing those standards of care just for these kind of purposes. And things like making a list, these are things that are in the booklet. Now, don't wait for your OT to contact you. I've had lots of people say to me, I don't ever hear from her, and I think, have you? So I ask nicely, have you contacted your OT? Because we see hundreds of people every week and every year, and we really need our clients to really get to know us, and we want to get to know you, and we can only do that by communicating really closely together. So don't be afraid to be in charge. Take charge. They're your team, and it's your equipment, it's your life. So I've touched a bit on getting the language right and talking about participation, not health. So I'll just move on to the next slide there. So looking at some goals, how to talk about your goals. These are things we're often not used to doing. We don't like to be so direct. We have to write these goals. I want to be able to. I want to maintain. So I statements are what you need to look at when you're writing your goals with your team. And, wrong button. I think it's really important that we have high expectations of ourselves. I really would love you to go home and think, I can expect to reach my goals. I know it's been hard. The teething problems, the NDIS, aren't easy, and I come across it every day at work. But the standards of care, yes, they're helpful to alert your OT to use that language that we were talking about and looking at the recommendations by experts. We can also help you from the health angle, which is where I work. I'm not a provider of the NDIS, so I'm not a private practitioner, but I can actually help you to help your OTs in the community to provide evidence of change, to look at the impact of what could happen if we provided that equipment as an example. So I can use things like the Canadian Occupational Performance Measure. We can look at apps, electronic diaries, etc. And there is a very easy scale that some of your therapists might like to use called the psychosocial impact of assistive devices, which is really easy to use. Reasonable and necessary. This is a controversial statement and it's very problematical, and I know that the interpretation has been extremely difficult for every person in this room, I'm sure. And that the basic rule that they have is that it must be related to the person's disability, and it can't replicate things that family and community already provide them with. And when we look at this kind of table, this kind of information can help your local OT or NDIS OT. So I've stolen this again from the Summer Foundation document. I'll give you that reference later. But the Section 34 of the NDIS Act means that every equipment that your OT asks for has to cover and be explanatory by each of those criteria on that left side of the screen. And so the first one is about meeting goals. The second one is about facilitating social and economic participation. The third one is about value for money. D is best practice, really important for you to remember. That's where you can kind of tackle some of the problems that you might have with the NDIS in providing, because best practice has meaning. Takes informal supports into account. And then the last one is anything that is not the responsibility of another mainstream service. So when your OT addresses each of the criteria points specifically, you are more likely to be successful. So probably your doctor writing a letter is not as powerful as an OT specifically addressing every one of those criteria for each thing that you want to ask for. And it won't be hard. It's just that they need this guide. So tell them about this guide and hopefully we can get some success there. So,
can I just ask?
yeah.
I've also been told recently that the forms and the template for OTs has been changed or
Yes.
updated, and you really need your OTs to be using the right forms when they're submitting things.
Yep, exactly. So, there's some updates on the new AT forms are under review. Yep, for sure. So, Enable New South Wales are actually been taking up some of the challenges with the NDIS. They are looking at, they've actually set up a respiratory support program for children. They've got some pilot sites where it's worked really well. There are exceptional circumstances forms and applications that you can make, and you can use Enable New South Wales as a supplier as well. You must notify that on your actual plan. And as Carolyn said, exactly, there's some updates that I just got from my manager recently. So the new AT forms are under review, and one of the things from the AT forms is that you'll be able to give permission to the NDIA to talk directly to your OT about your application. In other words, we can improve that application directly without you having to be the messenger, which has been a big problem, I think, for a lot of families. So they are actually listening to some of the complaints that OTs have made. We've made many representations through our association and other means as well. So there'll be a new two-stage process for home mods. I know this has been a really difficult area, but what they're going to do is the first stage will be an OT report identifying the need for that modification and a proposed scope of work. So a very simple thing like removal of a shower hob, widen a doorway, ramp access. That's all they need to say and explain why. And once that scope of works is approved by the NDIA, then that goes to a second stage of consulting with builders and obtaining quotes. So it just makes it a little bit easier to get that, stop that queue from banking up because of all the problems with quoting. So it's envisaged that this will be quicker and hopefully eliminate some of the problems we've been having now. They're going to have some special assessor teams. These will be people like physios, OTs and speechies who will meet with the participants, LACs and the planners prior to a planning meeting to specify issues that are for people with complex problems. And part of their role will be to liaise with people therapists that already know the person. There are local resolution and escalation processes which, as I said, I probably won't go into here because there's just too many of them and that's not my role today. But just know that it's worthwhile looking at those processes, that you can appeal, that you can get through to the Administrative Appeals Tribunal if you need to, and that there are examples that you can look at on some websites as well. So I'm just up to my take-home message, which one of them is to really increase those expectations of yourself, expect to increase your participation and start to use some of this language that we've been touching on today. It's your life, it's your goals, and there is opportunities for change because I think the NDIA has some great potential as well as a lot of pitfalls that we are seeing at the moment. But you can get help, and that's where people like MD New South Wales, OTs, physios, your speech therapists, these are people that are there to help you, but you do need to ask and you do need to expect that you're going to have to learn something new. It is new to all of us. I've had to learn a lot this last couple of years. And the main thing is that we want to remove these barriers. We want to increase your supports and enablers in your plan. And there's some nice websites there to help you along the way. So thanks very much.